My name is Jordan Blake, and I don't usually let people get to me. But that morning? That knock on my front door changed everything. It was barely 9 a.m. The sun had just crested the edge of the neighbor's roof, casting long shadows across my backyard where I had been working since dawn. I wiped the sweat from my brow, hands rough with splinters and sawdust. I was halfway through what was supposed to be a quiet summer project, just a simple shed. Except it wasn't just a shed. It was the last thing my father and I talked about before he passed. He told me, build something with your own hands. Something that lasts. That's how you stay grounded when the world tries to shake you. And I was building that. For him. For me. For peace. That's when the knock came. Sharp. Repetitive. Not the kind of knock that says, "Hey neighbor, just checking in." No. This knock sounded like a summons. I opened the door, and there she stood. Karen Winslow, head of the HOA, local tyrant in overpriced sunglasses, and the reason our street was always just one passive-aggressive email away from a riot. "Morning," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My stomach sank. She held a clipboard in one hand and a laminated copy of HOA guidelines in the other. Her nose twitched as she looked past me, directly toward the backyard. "I was walking by," she said, though everyone knew she never just walked by anything. "And I noticed, you're constructing a structure that may not comply with HOA bylaws." My jaw tightened. "It's a shed," I said. "For tools. Private use." Karen clicked her pen. "Oh. Well, unfortunately, that's not what it looks like. It's bigger than the regulations allow, and you didn't get prior approval. According to Section 8.3, Article 4, all structures must be approved by the board, and you think I'm building a mansion back there?" I cut in. She gave me a pitying look, like she was doing me a favor. "Look, Jordan, rules are rules. If it's not removed by next Friday, I'll be forced to escalate the matter. Formal violation. Possible fine. Legal action if it continues." I stood there in stunned silence. Not because I didn't expect it, Karen lived to make examples of people. But because I'd spent weeks pouring every ounce of pain, grief, and love into that space. Every nail I hammered was a memory of my father. Every plank was a prayer to keep his legacy alive. She was about to rip that away with a single complaint. But then, something in me shifted. The fear? Gone. The frustration? Replaced. With resolve. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply smiled. "Thank you for your concern," I said coolly. "I'll take care of it." She raised an eyebrow. "You will?" I nodded, slowly closing the door in her smug face. Then I turned around, walked back to the backyard, looked at the half-built frame, and whispered to myself. No more shed. Because now I had a better idea. I wasn't going to tear it down. I was going to turn it into the most stunning, fully functional guesthouse this street had ever seen, complete with granite countertops, high-speed Wi-Fi, and a rental price tag so high, even Karen herself couldn't afford a weekend inside. She wanted a war? She just knocked on the wrong door. 3 hours after Karen's knock, the first delivery truck pulled up. Lumber. Drywall. Insulation. Then another truck. And another. By sunset, my quiet backyard looked like a full-blown construction site. Nail guns echoed. Power saw screeched. And Karen? She was fuming. She stood on her porch with binoculars like she was watching a hostage crisis unfold. Her little poodle barked at every bang of the hammer. I made sure to whistle while I worked, loud and carefree, just to let her know I wasn't backing down. Because I wasn't just rebuilding a shed anymore. I was upgrading her nightmare. 3 days in, I had help. My friend Miguel, a licensed contractor and an old army buddy, showed up with coffee and a smirk. "She actually reported you over this?" he asked, walking the perimeter of my now expanded foundation. Yeah, I said. Tried to kill the project before it had walls. Miguel chuckled. Good thing you called me. If she wants to get petty, we'll get legal. He pulled out blueprints. This isn't a shed anymore. It's a 400 square foot, self-contained guest house, with permits. Full kitchen. Rain shower. Solar panels. ADA accessible. And we're listing it on premium vacation rental sites the minute it's done. My eyes widened. You serious? He grinned. Dead serious. I already know a photographer. We'll make it look like a 5-star escape. That night, I barely slept. Not from stress, but adrenaline. For the first time since my dad's funeral, I felt alive. Focused. I kept remembering how she had smiled while tearing my project apart like it was trash. So I made a decision. If she wanted a war of forms and bylaws, fine. But I'd hit her where it hurt most. Her status. Her control. Her pristine, HOA perfected bubble. By the end of week 1, the frame was up, insulation installed, and walls sealed. By week 2, plumbing and electricity were in place. Week 3? Drywall, tiling, and interior finishes. Miguel moved like magic, and I worked from dawn to dusk, even took vacation time off work to finish faster. And Karen? She was spiraling. I caught her 3 times on her phone, pacing the sidewalk and muttering words like violation. Unapproved structure. Who gave him permits? This wasn't on the board's agenda. What she didn't know was I had already gone above her. Straight to the city. Filed the paperwork. Paid the fees. Even registered it as an income-generating accessory dwelling unit. Legit. Locked. Legal. The cherry on top? The listing went live on the 22nd of the month. Title: The Urban Escape, a private luxury guest house in a quiet, gated neighborhood. Within an hour, it was booked for 3 weekends in a row. Nightly rate? $329. Cleaning fee? $75. Minimum stay, 2 nights. Miguel smiled when he saw the bookings. You just made more in a weekend than her entire monthly HOA stipend. I laughed. But the best part? One of the guests messaged me asking, is this the same street where that crazy HOA lady went viral last year for screaming at a lemonade stand? Just curious. Oh yes. Word was getting around. Karen thought she had the power. But what she didn't realize is, when you try to destroy someone's peace, you give them a reason to build something stronger. And I wasn't done yet.
It started with a letter. Slipped under my door like a threat in cursive. Notice of community disruption. You are required to attend a special HOA hearing on Thursday at 6 p.m. to address recent violations. No signature. No explanation. Just that smug HOA header Karen loved to slap on everything from noise complaints to lost cat flyers. I smiled. She was escalating. Perfect. Thursday evening, I showed up in jeans and a clean polo, looking like the calmest man in the world. Meanwhile, Karen sat at the head of the folding table, flanked by her loyal disciples, 2 retired real estate agents, and a guy who once argued about driveway widths for 20 minutes straight. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Until Karen leaned forward. We've received multiple concerns about your guest house, she said, spitting the word like it offended her mouth. I nodded. Yes. It's fully permitted. Want copies of the documents? Her mouth twitched. This isn't about permits. She slid a photo across the table. A grainy image of my backyard taken from between hedges. This structure is bringing outside traffic into the neighborhood. Strangers. Renters. It's disruptive to the community. I kept my cool. Oh, you mean the honeymooners from Chicago? Or the ER nurse who just needed a weekend away? I screens all guests myself. Criminal background check. No parties. And they are all verified through the booking platform. Karen looked rattled. One of the board members cleared his throat. Do you profit from it? Legally? Yes. And the city gets their taxes. Everyone wins. There was a pause. Then Karen tried to go for the kill. Well, under Section 5.7 of our HOA Charter, external business operations that attract non-residents are prohibited. Which means? That clause was repealed last year, I said, cutting her off. Page 14 of the new charter. The one you voted to approve. The room went silent. Her face went pale. I opened my briefcase and slid out my trump card, a notarized letter from the city's zoning office confirming the unit's compliance, signed and sealed. Karen stared at it like it had personally betrayed her. I've followed every rule, I said calmly. So unless there's something else. She didn't answer. Just sat there, lips pressed into a thin, defeated line. Meeting adjourned. The next morning, I walked out with coffee in hand and watched as a black SUV rolled into the neighborhood, my next guest. Karen was standing outside watering her roses, passive-aggressively aiming the spray a little too close to my fence. The SUV driver stepped out, tall, stylish, probably early 40s. She smiled, waving at me. Hi, Jordan. This place looks even better in person. Karen stared, confused. The guest turned to her. Hi. Is this the host? Your son? Karen blinked. He's not related to me. The guest laughed. Well, he's got better taste. You should see the tile work in the guest house. Feels like a spa. And just
like that, Karen was dismissed. Over the next few weeks, more guests came. Some brought gifts. One left a 5-star review that read, tucked into a quiet community, this guest house was better than a hotel. The neighborhood was charming, though the lady across the street gave major HOA villain energy face with tears of joy. The review went viral. Local real estate blogs picked it up. TikTok creators started filming walkthroughs. I got offered a partnership deal with a home renovation brand. And Karen? She started closing her blinds during the day. Stopped attending HOA meetings. Stopped walking her dog near my fence. Because the truth was clear. She tried to destroy me with rules. But I rebuilt myself with purpose, and made a masterpiece she had to watch succeed from the sidelines. The idea started as a joke. Miguel and I were sipping beers in the newly furnished guest house, admiring the glass shower and custom lighting, when he said, you should throw an open house. Show it off. Let the neighborhood see what luxury actually looks like. I laughed. An open house? For what? A guest suite? He smirked. Not just a guest suite. A design showcase. Real estate agents do it all the time. And you've got bookings lined up till October. I thought about it. The truth? I wanted people to see it, especially the people who thought I didn't belong here. And no one deserved a front row seat more than Karen. So I printed flyers. Posted in community Facebook groups. Invited a local home blogger. Ordered tiny hors d'oeuvres from a catering service that cost more than my first car payment. And I picked the perfect date. 4th of July weekend. When everyone would be outside. When no one could ignore me. That Saturday, the street buzzed like a hive. Neighbors wandered over with plastic cups and wide eyes. Families peeked in, whispering, wait, this used to be a shed? Kids dipped strawberries in the chocolate fountain I'd set up near the fence. Then the blogger arrived, live with over 300K followers. She wore oversized sunglasses and filmed everything. The smart lock. The rainfall shower. The skylight above the queen bed. Even the candle that automatically turned on with voice command. "Y'all," she said into her phone, "this little guest house just humbled every Airbnb I've ever stayed in." And the irony? It was built right next to the most miserable HOA president I've ever seen. I nearly dropped my drink. Karen was watching through the blinds. Again. Always watching. She snapped about 20 minutes later. The front door slammed. She stormed across the lawn in her usual uniform, beige slacks, clipboard, and an expression like she was headed to war. "This isn't a permitted event," she barked. "No one cleared this with the board. This is a violation." Everyone turned. Liv, still recording, asked innocently. "Are you with the property? Are you the host's assistant or something?" Karen's face flushed red. "I am the Homeowners Association president." "Oh," Liv said, raising her eyebrows. "So, the villain?" Gasps. Laughter. One neighbor actually clapped. Karen stormed back across the lawn, heels sinking into grass. That clip? It went viral within hours. 1.2 million views overnight. Caption: when the HOA Karen crashes your open house but ends up helping your brand woman shrugging. I gained 12,000 new followers. Requests poured in, people begging for the Airbnb link. By Monday, I had triple bookings, a brand partnership offer, and an invitation to speak at a small business panel in the city. And Karen? She called a private HOA meeting to discuss new rules on backyard structures. But the board rejected it, unanimously. Because the same people who once silently nodded at her orders? Now they were asking me for renovation tips. The truth was simple. She built her identity on control. But I built something better. A space people loved, admired, and paid for. And no HOA charter could stop that. Not anymore. It happened just after the last guest checked out. The suite was spotless, lemon-scented towels folded, lights dimmed to a soft golden hue, welcome basket restocked. I was sipping coffee on the patio when I heard it. A knock. Not at the guest house. At my front door. I opened it, and froze. Karen. No clipboard. No smug expression. Just a woman who looked like she'd aged a decade in a week. "Hi," she said stiffly. "Do you have a minute?" I stepped aside. Not out of kindness, curiosity. She walked in like a guest who didn't know where to put her shoes. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "My husband lost his job 3 months ago. I didn't want to tell anyone. We're struggling." She looked up at me, eyes dull. "The mortgage went up. Our savings went down. And my daughter's getting married in 2 months." I thought, maybe. I already knew where this was going. She cleared her throat. "Do you still rent out the guest house?" The world seemed to pause in that moment. The same woman who tried to destroy me over that guest house. Who photographed it in secret. Filed reports. Rallied board members to shut me down. Now, she wanted in. I took a long breath. "I do," I said carefully. She nodded. "Would you consider letting us rent it for the out-of-town guests? Just for a week. I'd pay full price." She sounded almost embarrassed to say it. Like each word cost her something. I could have said no. I could have reminded her of every HOA letter, every insult, every bitter glance. But instead, I pulled out a small binder, my rates, calendar, policies, and slid it across the table. Karen stared at it. "I added a discount," I said. Her eyes lifted. "Why?" "Because kindness isn't a rule in the HOA charter," I said. "It's a choice. One you never made for me." She swallowed hard. "Thank you," she whispered. The week of the wedding, the guest house was filled with laughter, flowers, the smell of catered dinners. And Karen? She kept her head down. No more glares. No more letters. Just a quiet nod of thanks as her guests left glowing 5-star reviews, praising the space she once called an eyesore. Sometimes karma doesn't come with thunder. Sometimes it knocks gently, asking for a favor. And if you're smart, you answer it with grace, not for them, but for yourself. Because I didn't build that guest house out of spite. I built it to rise above. And in the end? Even Karen had to admit, she never stood a chance.